Hello and welcome to the Total Soccer Show. My name is Daryl Grove. I'm joined by a man who always makes a plan before the show. I see you typing up your notes. Mm-hmm. His name is Taylor Rockwell. Hello.
Hello. You see me typing them now as in present tense?
No, I have seen you type up those notes.
Gotcha.
I've seen you do it, is what I'm saying. And I think you do. I think your notes are always a little cleaner than mine. A little bullet pointed, all that sort of stuff.
I like bullet points.
Yeah, I'm more for the scroll on the yellow legal pad.
Yes, which works. I think you've teased me about the bullet point thing before.
Yeah.
Right up until you're like, wait, I don't remember where that note was, and you have to go through like 4 pages of hastily written legal pads.
I wrote a really good thing here, but it's not legible. I do have my US starting 11 that I would like to see face Bosnia.
As do I.
Penciled in, literally, on legal pad here. Mm-hmm. But first, we got to talk about a person who did release some notes.
Yeah.
Eric Wynalda released his, I forgot what it was called, America United? Yeah, America United 2018 document on his website. We'll put a link in the show notes so you can take a read as well. It's 12 or 14 pages? Very text-heavy?
Yes,
very text-heavy.
With citations.
But definitely, there is. Definitely, was it the correct form of citations? I'd be interested to check that.
I don't know.
But I think it's really interesting because a lot of people after the presidential forum and throughout Eric Wynalda's campaign had mentioned that maybe there's a lot of attack in there, a lot of pointing out problems, and very theatrically and in a very attention-grabbing way pointing out problems.
Yeah.
Here are some solutions in this document.
Yes.
We both read it.
We have. Important to reference first off, though, I think that this is not his entire campaign plan.
Yes,
right?
There's a line in there in the sort of introductory page. The plan is not comprehensive and we will release additional position papers addressing the 7 pillars of USSF. Youth, adult, amateur, professional, national teams, referees, coaches and athletes in the coming days. Mm-hmm. Here's why I think this is smart, is because before I knew this, I'm going to guess you did the same thing. First thing I did was look through for the pro-rel plan.
I didn't actually,
right.
but that was only because I think you had looked it over briefly last night.
Okay,
and so I was aware that there weren't any bombshells. Yeah. So I was actually more so intent on reading the whole thing in case it referenced stuff, and then I missed it, and then I was like, I can't believe he didn't mention this.
So my contention is that if there had been a pro-rel plan in any detail, that would have sort of sucked up all the oxygen, and that would be the only thing anyone was talking about. So maybe if that is held off until, I'm assuming, the position paper for the professional element, if it's in there, then it's at least separating. It means that podcasts like ours will not be talking pro-rel today. We'll be talking about the other things that are listed in America United 2018.
Yeah, I think so. I also think, though, that we've seen him not necessarily be attacked or even criticized, but it seems to me as though he is sort of sensitive about the business aspect of soccer, that he is aware that he doesn't come from that background, and I think he's tried to play that up with the whole, we should be in the soccer business, not the business of soccer.
Yeah.
That's his way of kind of criticizing Carlos Cordero and Kathy Carter.
Yeah, it's not a great sentence, right? It's kind of hard to follow that sentence a little bit.
It isn't, especially because I think one of the times we heard him say it, he tripped over it a little bit and kind of forgot which one was supposed to come first.
Yeah.
But it felt to me like this was an attempt to establish his bona fides. That's why the first thing about how we're losing players and how we can take $1 from the $2 fee and then $2 from that fee and then turn it into this and then that becomes that. It was a very, in my mind, deliberate attempt to point out the financial aspect of his plan to show, I have thought about this, I have ideas.
Well, should we do that first then? To me, there's the financial aspects in this plan, and then there's some sort of committee-type aspects or department aspects that he would propose setting up within US Soccer. Do you want to start with financial aspects? Because the first phrase that caught my eye was the phrase, soccer stimulus.
Okay.
And I'll be honest, I thought, that's some good copywriting. Whoever came up with that, I'm guessing someone on his team came up with that. That's some pretty good copywriting.
All right, so let's talk about it. Why did that jump out to you?
Why did the phrase jump out? Just because it's alliterative and it thinks, stimulus.
Yeah, but why do you want to talk about it?
Because I think there are some specific elements in there that are worth considering, right? The fees thing that you mentioned, I thought was not as mind-blowing as you would hope, right? It's just that the $1 that youth and the $2 that adults pay, or it might be the other way around, when you register for your local teams, that money goes up to US Soccer. That would just kind of be rebated, so you wouldn't pay that anymore. So that's kind of just an easy give to the youth soccer teams.
What do you mean? I thought it was that you would still give it. It's just that you then, the organization keeps that $1. So I guess it's not being given, but in my mind, it's still this weird, circle that brings it back to the
so
same
point. It goes
point.
up and comes back down.
Yeah, essentially, yeah. But it basically lets them keep that, which at first I was a little bit does that really help? But if you think about it, if you're the adult soccer league that has 4,000 registered players.
Every player's $1 or $2, then that's quite a lot of money in the end. Yeah. Okay, so the other bigger stuff that stood out to me was the endowment spending policy.
Yes.
Did you see this? So it's essentially as I understand it, an endowment is one big chunk of money that is invested and gains money over time, and then there's a set piece of that you would then sort of make available to other organizations for investments and things like that. But the big chunk of money itself doesn't get whittled away at, right? So money is making money, and you keep that extra money or give it out to other organizations.
Yeah, and that's where the idea of like the bridge loans comes into play, that he wants to be able to provide bridge loans to people who are trying to build up infrastructure. I think his number was $50 million annually in membership loans. I think the idea there being that you don't have to approach banks or individual investors who maybe are going to then push you to have more monetized aspects of it. You can kind of do what you want to do.
That's actually a separate branch of it called the Internal Treasury Bank.
Yes,
is
sir.
what it's been called. To provide funds and loans to soccer organizations for various projects. All right, what do we think of this? It seems like an obviously good idea to me.
Yeah.
And I'm kind of shocked that it doesn't already happen.
Me too. I mean, that's basically it for me. Is I was like, it took me a little while. Like, we did a little bit of research as to what 501c3s are allowed to do in terms of charging interest, and they are. I mean, with that in mind, to be fair,
there was no specific reference to charging interest, but I'm assuming you'd have to charge at least enough interest to keep up with the rate of inflation, or that money gets given away.
That too, but then also I was just sort of like, can 501c3s like loan money? Like, it's just, and I think I have a very outdated idea of nonprofits, which is like, oh, they get all their money from donations. Not the case.
Nonprofit just means you're not in it to make a
hospital's a nonprofit, so it's technically a nonprofit at least.
Some of them are.
Some of them are.
So it's worth just separating those two things. The endowment spending policy is literally money that would be just distributed, no strings attached, right? The Internal Treasury Bank would be loans that could be given for projects that organizations, and when I say organizations, I'm talking youth soccer teams, adult soccer leagues. Like maybe if we hit capacity here in Richmond, because we're close, right, with our big league, maybe we needed some new fields to
they need new fields as it is.
They do, yeah. So maybe in the future this would be something where Central Virginia Soccer Association could apply to US Soccer for a loan or maybe a grant through the endowment spending policy to get some new fields built. Right?
Yeah, that certainly. But then if you look at it from a larger perspective of if you are a town, we always go Montana on the Top Drawer Soccer Show. So I'll say if you're a town in like South Dakota that maybe doesn't have access to a good field or a good indoor facility, like I think you could also see it as a way that people can look to the federation to help them finance actual infrastructure to help promote the growth in areas where it's underdeveloped.
Or to set up new programs or to hire coaches, any of that type of stuff. It's all very positive to me.
I think, I was going to say, before you go into your one, I'm assuming criticism or negative about it, I was going to say the thing that I liked the most about it, though, was that it wasn't, at least from what I could tell, heavily reliant on that $150 million surplus.
Yes.
And again, going back to that forum, it just felt like everybody except Carlos Cordero was like, oh, we've got $150 million. And he was like, no, we have $50 million. And so I'm excited to see other ideas that could bring about not income, but more money into the federation that could then be redistributed.
That's what I like about this, is it's Eric Wynalda not saying let's spend that $150 million, but new ideas for income. The one that this is the other part of this, the monetizing stuff that I like but don't like, is monetizing the US Open Cup.
All right.
So first of all, I think we should monetize the US Open Cup. I think US Soccer Federation has done a really poor job of doing much with that trophy, right? But the sort of utopia that Eric Wynalda presents about how to monetize the Open Cup, and the FA Cup brings in this much money. It's never going to match that. It's not going to be the sort of gigantic cash cow that I think anyone wants it to be. I'd be very surprised.
It has the potential to bring many hundreds of millions in television revenue, commercial sponsorship, and private investment through the federation.
In 1 year? In 10 years? In 50 years?
It's a good question, and this was one of those where I feel like we saw the written version of Eric Wynalda's, I've talked to some people are saying, and like he does that a couple times, and that's what it felt like here. Is like, I've talked to some experts and they think we could be monetizing this at a much more successful rate. It felt like a two-pronged thing of one, another sort of like way to obviously show this is how we could help grow the game and have more money in it, but also show, hey, maybe people out there aren't as interested in helping U.S. Soccer make as much money as it could be, as opposed to making money for their organization, which is to say it felt like a little bit of a veiled shot at Soccer United marketing.
Oh, interesting. Okay. I didn't read it that way, but I'm on board if you did. But I would say, even though that didn't feel realistic to me, the US Open Cup can definitely be monetized and much better presented than it has been in the past ever.
Yep. This is definitely true. The one line that stuck out to me from that one, though, was he said there is a disincentive to progress because of the prohibitive costs currently imposed by the federation as clubs qualify for the final stages of the competition.
I'm guessing travel.
I'm guessing so, too, except for currently imposed by the federation. that made it sound like if you make it to the semifinals, you have to pay like a semifinal fee. I'm assuming you're correct that it is just sort of the
travel,
cost
hotels,
of travel,
etc. Yeah,
All right.
Because the early rounds are localized, right? The reason Christos FC played the Richmond Kickers in the early rounds is, Christos is in Maryland, so they didn't have to travel too far. They're drawn into the local.
I get that. I'm saying
those are the costs.
Just the usage of imposed by the federation implies that it's the federation making you pay those travel costs. And I guess maybe what he's indicating...
That's just a bit of a rhetoric trick, isn't it?
Well, maybe.
Because they're not reimbursing you.
Well, that might be what it is for me, is more so him saying, when I'm president, you won't have to pay those costs. The federation will finance them. It will be free travel for all.
Well, I think that actually is a good proposal, I think. There should be money. If you bring in revenue, then you can use that money to make it so that it's not a burden to go play in the competition that you've gone far in.
Yep.
Right? I think that's fair.
Yeah, but I think and if you're looking at it from a neutral perspective and thinking, but why should Christos FC get the same amount of money as DC United or vice versa? Like why? Like DC United that's a bad example, but other clubs in Major League Soccer make a lot of money. Why should they be like getting subsidized travel? And the answer is because if you don't help them, they're not going to prioritize it, and they currently don't.
And maybe I think one of the things was to make a cash prize so that for DC United it actually is worth putting your best team on the field and you're making the US Open Cup more of a priority for teams.
Yes. The only other thing with this one is just not really related to this, but just don't use I know you have to use the FA Cup, but number one, oldest continuously operating club competition in the world, I believe, or cup competition in the world. Not quite the same, but also people don't really care that much about the FA Cup anymore. I think if you were making this argument maybe 15, 20 years ago, it might be a different perspective.
Maybe 50 years ago? A lot of the prestige of the FA Cup comes from the tradition and the glory of it in the past. I don't think you can sort of retroactively create that. The one thing I would argue, if we're going to talk US Open Cup, is that with the current structure of American soccer in the pyramid and how you can't move between divisions, it really is attractive as the one place where the small teams can go against the big teams. I mean, the Christos FC story, I was really excited by it. We kind of got sort of woven into that because we did the commentary for the Kickers, so we saw that giant killing live, right? So we sort of experienced it firsthand. But I really think you could get a lot of those stories would catch the attention of people in the United States, maybe in a way they wouldn't in other countries because we don't get to see it that often. You know what I'm saying?
And and flipping it around, I think Christos FC maybe still haven't or only in the past month received their prize money for going far in the tournament. That definitely disincentivizes teams to really prioritize that. If Christos FC put all that money in, or maybe, I'm not saying they did, but if there were a team who had to actually take out a loan to finance their travel to play in the next round, now they're not able to pay that off because they haven't gotten the prize money. That causes problems.
I know some guys took some days off work as well to make that happen. Okay, how about the other stuff in Eric Wynalda's...
That was actually what it was called, right? In the plan? Other stuff?
The other stuff in Eric Wynalda's plan. Sort of it was out of the creation of various bodies. The one that really got me was I can't remember what he called it, but it was essentially a transition council for players who are retiring. There'd be a sort of advisory council that tells you, here's what you need to do. Here's some connections to the rest of your career, the rest of your life.
Yep.
Here's what you should do with your money. Here's how you should invest if you've got a pension, all that kind of stuff. I think that's kind of geared to appeal to the Athletes Council, which is 20% of the vote. It's a smart move to appeal to them, obviously. But also it genuinely is a very good idea, especially when you have players not making that much money, right? These aren't millionaires coming out of soccer in the United States. Some of these guys are going to need to take extra jobs, are going to need to be smart with the money they did earn.
Yes,
right.
And I think there was a lot of that when he got to talking about the Athletes Council.
Yeah,
the idea of having the secure website for confidential constituent feedback.
Yes,
that allows basically for players to tell you what's going on with them, what isn't working, so that maybe the idea there is that they can be more heard. Same thing there for me is the idea that it really is speaking to that Athletes Council and saying, hey, look, you guys have been frustrated by a lack of payment or lack of being heard or being forced to play on turf if you're the women's team. Now you have a direct line of communication to the president who is promising to listen to you.
Right, and he's saying the same thing to the youth councils and adult councils, right? He's saying the youth clubs and adult clubs. He's saying he proposed a kind of listening tour and town halls.
Yep.
And I think the phrase that really got me, again, some good copywriting, he said, we will prove to you, meaning the amateur and youth teams, that the phone works on both ends.
Yep.
Meaning that US Soccer won't be just sending you directives, we'll also be hearing your complaints and maybe doing something about it.
Whether you've been here for 30 minutes or 30 years.
Is that right?
I believe is how he concluded that one.
So have we ended up sort of saying this document's kind of a success in terms of Eric Wynalda's presidential campaign?
I mean, it certainly is because it addresses, I think, some of the concerns people probably had about him. It brings up a clear policy with actually actionable items. And then it does other things that I think speak to the current era. You look at what's going on with U.S. gymnastics, and then you look at some of the stuff in here about like establishing like models that incorporate inclusion and safety for all of our members. I feel like that is directly targeting a lot of what is happening in modern-day America.
Yeah, that makes sense to me. Yeah, he talked a lot about how US soccer has the chance to be a model non-profit, which again is very a lofty ambition. But if it is an organization that's going to be kind of reformed over the next couple of years, why not sort of make it the shining city on a hill of non-profits, sports organizations or federations, really set the example in the United States and around the world? It's not impossible.
Institutionalized policies, procedures, and safeguards is what he stresses
All right.
there.
See, you did make a lot of notes.
I did.
Typey over there.
Because I really enjoyed Eric Wynalda when he was on our show. I have enjoyed some of the things he has had to say. I did not enjoy his work in that presidential forum. It felt very dramatic, and it felt like I don't have a plan, so I'm going to scare you into voting for me.
Yeah.
This feels like a person with a plan with clear ideas.
Yep.
I appreciate that much more.
All right. I guess we'll talk more as the other position papers, as they call it, are coming out.
Ideally before the election.
Ideally before. I mean, it'd be a waste of time if he releases them afterwards, right? Okay. So before we talk,
I mean to say more so that if he wins that election without releasing those position papers, there's not a lot tying him down in terms of what he has said he's actually going to do.
I see what you're saying.
So I think that's all I have for Wynalda's Manifesto, is what I'm going to call it.
For now?
Yeah. Anything from you?
All
right. Well, then we want to move on to covering the U.S. January camp, their upcoming friendly against Bosnia, which we have
and Herzegovina.
Which we would, I think, have talked a lot more about in previous years. But we've been very busy.
We would have been prepping for a World Cup in previous years.
I was going to say, number one, we've been like in Philadelphia, that kind of limited.
I see.
Like I kind of was like, oh yeah, right, they're in January camp. Kind of forgot about that one. But also, two, we would be much more excited because in previous World Cup years, we would be preparing for a World Cup. So there would be a chance to see some of these guys and wonder, ooh, is this guy who had a really great year in Major League Soccer, is he suddenly in contention? Is he going to make that World Cup squad? There's not really that excitement this time around. So we were trying to find ways to be enthusiastic about the USA Bosnia and Herzegovina game, and we found a way, Daryl.
We did. For our Roughneck ad, we tweeted out, if you were to design a Roughneck scarf, because you can design custom scarves at Roughneck Scarves, to try and get pumped for Sunday's US v Bosnia game, what would that scarf look like?
Luke says, on one side, Tyler Adams scoring from 30 yards out to beat Bosnia. On the other side, Adams, McKennie, and Keaton Parks holding a World Cup with Jonathan Gonzalez crying in the stands, witnessing a dream midfield he could have been a part of.
There's a lot of detail on that scarf, but I like it.
I'm okay with it.
Oscar Javier says his scarf would say, "Rise, rise against the dying of the light." You get that reference?
Is that a paraphrase?
It's a paraphrase of the Dylan Thomas poem, right? Normally it's rage, rage against the dying of the light. I think about as you get old and die, essentially. Rise, rise against the dying of the light. It's kind of, I take it to mean the big comeback for American soccer as we sort of get these new young players in there.
I take it to mean fight the dying of the night, but yeah.
Yeah.
Either way. John Youngblood, it would feature Tyler Adams. A lot of Tyler Adams up in here.
Yep.
On all sides of the scarf, as Tyler Adams is who I'm putting my hopes in and what I'll be excited about.
All right, I'm with you, John. Patrick Keeler
we know you are, Darryl.
Patrick Keeler had maybe the best answer. He said, "These Roughneck questions are getting harder and harder."
It's a good answer. I don't know if that fits on a scarf, but it's a good answer.
I'm not sure that would be a successful custom scarf.
Probably not.
So Roughneck don't only do custom scarves. You can go to roughneckscarves.com and you can browse their collection. There are team scarves from MLS, USL, NCAA, and all kinds of American soccer scarves.
These are facts.
And if you use the discount code Total Soccer Show, all one word, you'll get 20% off any scarf you see at roughneckscarves.com.
So thank you to Roughneck Scarves for sponsoring today's show. Thank you to Luke, Oscar, John, Patrick, and everyone else who sent in responses.
Yes.
Let's talk Bosnia, shall we?
Nice try, the guy who tried to use a Always Sunny in Philadelphia reference.
He knew it speaks to my heart.
He knew his audience,
yes.
but we can't be tricked.
And let me rephrase to say, let's talk the Bosnia-Herzegovina game by talking about the U.S. team.
Yeah, okay. So the game is 6:30 Pacific on Sunday night. It's on Fox Sports 1. That's 9:30 Eastern. We realised only today. We're going to be up late that night.
Yep.
So there are 29 players in camp. Dom Dwyer dropped out. And this US team is going to be playing against a domestic Bosnian team.
Okay.
Can we talk Bosnia first, actually?
Sure.
I'd like to just set this up, who we're playing. Okay.
Set the stage.
So Bosnia, I think their league is out of season. So it's essentially domestic Bosnian players, a few guys who play in Croatian leagues, one guy who plays for the Philadelphia Union. His name is Haris Madunjin of the Philadelphia Union, and a 19-year-old forward who plays in college here in the US for the University of Nebraska, Omaha.
All right.
So this is certainly not an all-star roster from Bosnia.
Not so much, no.
But one reason they may be up for it is they have a new coach, Robert Prozanecki, which is how I'm choosing to pronounce it. He's a kind of a legendary Croatian player, but he was only appointed January 4th. So this is his first ever sort of roster. It's these guys' first chance to impress the new national team coach. So I think you're going to see a bunch of Bosnians who are really up for sort of making an impression on their new coach.
Prozanecki versus Sarakin?
Yeah.
It's the matchup we've been waiting for.
The playing careers were very different. One of those guys played for Real Madrid.
Sarakin?
It wasn't. Also, with the mind, Bosnia did not go to the World Cup, so this isn't about prepping for the World Cup. This is about, same as for the US, this is about new coach, new era, all that kind of stuff. Yeah.
Yes.
So, to the US.
Yeah.
Who's in charge? Dave Sarakin. Dave Sarakin is still the acting US men's national team head coach, I believe is his official title.
Yeah.
And for that reason, I think we talked off air that maybe we shouldn't pay too much attention to what Dave Sarakin's plans are because he's not there for the long term. Is that fair?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, I think with that in mind, he's not trying to get the United States to play some new, exciting, tactical, innovative approach that will maybe get him the interim job or get him the full-time job. I think he knows
he's basically accidentally got the interim job, right?
Yes, and I think as last we spoke was interviewing for college gigs.
Is that right?
So I don't think he has any long-term plans.
It's a good resume builder.
Yeah,
coach the US to a tie in Portugal and maybe a win over Bosnia.
Yeah.
I would say tactically, what I would hope to see is something that looks quite similar to what happened in the Portugal game, which is sort of a high energy, high pressure United States. That sound fair? Almost honestly, kind of a Tab Ramos looking United States, because a lot of these guys have come through the U20s anyway, right? You've got Tyler Adams, Justin Glad, Danilo Costa, Brooks Lennon, all those guys on this roster.
It's also what they did against Portugal, and I thought it worked pretty well. So I think he'll probably do something similar, which means some form of a 4-1-4-1 or a 4-3-3.
My guess is a 4-3-3 because away to Portugal is one thing, home to a second-string Bosnia is maybe another thing, right? It might be worth being a bit more, expansive? Meaning, so for example, the 4-1-4-1 against Portugal, Tyler Adams was the right mid. I kind of think in this game you'll have something looking more like a 4-3-3 and you'll have an actual right winger, right? So it could be, say, Paul Areola or Brooks Lennon. Does that sound about right?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay, so how do you want to do this? You want to go from the back, from the front? Where would you like to...
Well, first of all, I'll say I'm guessing we're not going to have that many disagreements in this one because I do think there are ones that either... Because what we're going with is maybe not necessarily what we think Sarakin will do, it's
impossible to tell. Is the thing. We can't really say with confidence this is what Sarakin normally does, this is who he likes, this is the team he's going to put out there. So I think we're going with our best guess and maybe some things to look out for that might be helpful.
Yeah, I think what we're trying to do is basically take what we think he might do in terms of just the general formation and the shape.
Oh, I've gone with what I'll do.
And then then I've gone with what I think he will do, given that we just had a 3-minute conversation about what formation we think he might do. But then I've gone with the players that I would most prefer to see in those spots, starting with Zach Steffen in goal.
Yes, Zach Steffen in goal. I think the other options were Bono, the Toronto keeper, whose name I think I mispronounced, Bill Hamid and Cody Cropper. But Zach Steffen is kind of the man of the moment after those playoff performances.
I think so.
Yeah.
I think so. I think also Cody Cropper, who is in the TSS Scouting Network and has been for some time, I don't see him as
Zach Steffen's in there too.
Being up there. Yeah, true. We have a report on him in just a few moments.
All right.
But I don't see Cody Cropper as being in that top tier of the next generation of goalkeepers. Bono maybe. Bill Hamid has been there for a while. We've seen what he has to offer, so I'd rather see somebody new, see what they can do.
Zach Steffen. I'm excited to see him suit up for the US, actually.
Yeah.
All right. So I'm assuming you've gone back 4 as well. There are 9 defenders on the roster, so we've got a few options here. Can we start with the centre-backs?
Sure.
I've gone for Ike Opara, because he
Agreed.
has the correct ranking of Parks and Rec in the office, and Walker Zimmerman next to him. How about you?
I boo both that selection and also the joke you're making. I've gone for Ike Opara as well, and I've gone for Justin Glad.
Oh, interesting. Okay. I think I went Zimmerman just because he's older, got a little more experience. He's played for the US before, and I feel like they'll sort of be a little bit, given it's such a young roster, 15 uncapped players, they'll lean a little bit into experience, hence Walker Zimmerman next to Ike Opara.
It's a decent possibility. I haven't been as impressed by Walker Zimmerman in the last few times we've seen him with the U.S.
Yeah.
And honestly, when with with Dallas before moving to LA.
Yeah, he's had some patches of bad form.
Yeah. So whereas
as did all of FC Dallas.
This is true.
Yeah.
Whereas Justin Glad, we've seen him before with the U20s. He's part of that, the 4 players who played for the U20 World Cup who are now here.
Yeah.
And I feel like we always kind of overlook him a little bit. He's always the oh yeah, and he's there. He's the new Alejandro Bedoya in that regard. So I would like to see him get a start here, see what he can do anchoring that back line.
You talking about Glad or Zimmerman?
Glad.
Okay, yeah, I'm excited to see Glad as well. But yeah, because we've overlooked him, I feel like he would. He's ready to impress us. I see him coming on at halftime for Opara or Walker Zimmerman.
I see Zimmerman coming on at halftime. So there.
All right. Well, here's what I do know about these guys.
Yeah.
I know Zimmerman is very much the sort of step high, get to the ball guy, which can be magnificent to watch when he's on his game. Can be scary if he does it wrong and gets beat. Ike Opara, I think he's maybe the best at playing the ball out of the back amongst the centre-backs on offer. And that's the reason, as well as his maturity, because he's, 28? That's the reason that he will start.
I don't love the idea of Zimmerman charging around and trying to make plays, given that this is a roster that is in the offseason. So maybe he's not quite as up on it as he would be if this were regular season, middle of the season.
That's interesting. Yeah, all these guys are, none of them are in form because none of them are playing, right? Pre-season has just started for Major League Soccer teams.
Or not, if you're Minnesota and show up and you're snowed out. So, yeah. Left back, I think maybe we have some disagreement here.
Okay.
I've gone for Danilo Costa.
Have you really? I'd be excited to see that, but I've gone for the more experienced Justin Morrow.
Okay.
Yeah. Based on form, because he's the most recent left back to have played, because he played in December in MLS Cup.
Yep.
And also he kind of, deserves his shot, I think.
Yeah, he was mine when we did our, the next generation or, players under 5 caps, or with 5 caps or fewer. I think he has 5. I would be happy to see Justin Morrow because I think he's played his way into consideration. I would be more excited, I know this goes without saying, if this were a World Cup year, because I do think left back was and is an area of vulnerability for the U.S., and so it kind of was open for all comers.
I think the other guy we could see is Brandon Vincent, Chicago Fire. I know Matt Doyle speaks highly of him.
You mean aside from Danilo Costa, correct?
Well, I think, didn't we talk off air earlier that if you include Morrow and Vincent, then Acosta maybe isn't there as a left back because there are so few right backs. Maybe Acosta is there as a right back.
Maybe. But I mean, he's been, when you've transitioned him into a left back, specifically at club level, and that's where he played for the U.S. at youth level, I have to believe he stays at left back. It'd be weird for me to suddenly have somebody shunted over onto the other side.
That's true, because that means one of these guys misses out then, right? Morrow, Acosta, or Vincent misses out, unless we do 30-minute spells each.
Well, I mean, you can only do 7 subs, right?
Yeah.
You don't have unlimited subs, so regardless, some people are going to miss out.
There you go. Okay, right back, I've got Matt Polster, and I'm actually very excited to see Matt Polster at right back for the US national team.
Agreed?
There
we go.
Is that it?
Yep.
Wrapped up. Okay, shall we move to the midfield then? I've gone for a sort of 3-man midfield with sort of one sitting deep.
We have the same 3-man midfield. I know we do.
Do we? I was going back and forth between Russell Knaus and Will Trapp, and I went for 1L 2Ps, Will Trapp.
I did the same.
Yeah.
I also went with Christian Roldan in that midfield and Tyler Adams.
I've got the same thing.
Yeah.
I've got the very same thing. So I see Will Trapp sort of spraying passes around from that number 6 role, and then Tyler Adams kind of aggressively pressing in front of them, trying to win the ball high, and the same for Christian Roldan. I think that's a good mix of energy. And then when you get,
I'm just really excited to see you be conflicted as to who the future of the U.S. national team is in this game. Because if Will Trapp has a really good game, but so does Tyler Adams.
Will Trapp's the old future. Tyler Adams is the new future.
And Josh Sargent?
He's the future.
And Weston McKinney?
Is the present future.
Okay.
I feel like I've navigated that quite well.
I think. I wasn't really listening. We'll have to go back and see.
Another guy I'd like to see is Marky Delgado. He was another one who was key to Toronto FC's season. I feel like he can kind of play anywhere in that midfield. I could see him as the holding midfielder. I know he did that for the 2015 U20 World Cup. I also think he's sort of smart and energetic enough. He could be one of the 2 more forward midfielders. Right. Worth focusing on Tyler Adams, not just because, obviously I'm a fan of his game. A lot of people mentioned him in the Roughneck Scarves segment. This is a big moment to see him in central midfield, right? Because the last US game he was right mid. For New York Red Bulls, he's often the right wing back. So it's not that often we get to see him play central midfield.
No, it's not.
Yeah.
It's also not often that we see him doing that for the United States at a time when, because this is such a young team, I'll refrain from going through all those statistics, but suffice to say...
15 uncapped players.
Yeah, Giassi Zardes is your most capped player, put it that way.
37?
You got it.
Yeah.
So, in my mind, that is kind of an opportunity then for Tyler Adams to be almost a senior figure, or sort of be like, hey, I've been here before. I know what it's all about. I'm good to go.
How about this for a very specific prediction? You will see Tyler Adams telling other people what to do in this game. Because he does it for New York Red Bulls. I think he'll be doing it for the US national team. Yeah. Okay, so out wide,
sure.
Who you got?
Paul Arriola. He was featured by US Soccer as one of the new generation of leaders. It was like he's taken a leadership role. So too has Jordan Morris, I think, and maybe Juan Agudelo was in there. I can't remember if he was.
I only saw a photo
of
the two of them.
Okay,
yeah.
But yeah, I think it's Paul Arriola for that reason. Plus, I just really like what Paul Arriola does.
Yeah, I'm a fan of his. I'm a fan of his game. Okay, so that's pretty simple. Maybe Brooks Lennon sort of relieves him after an hour or so. You get maybe 20 minutes for Brooks Lennon.
This is where I'm sort of disappointed by how strong like the right side is.
Yeah.
Just because I would really like to see Brooks Lennon. I did enjoy what he did at the U20 World Cup. And so I wouldn't mind seeing him there, but I feel like I'd lean Paul Arriola both for DC and for what he's done in the past.
So if Brooks Lennon comes on, you'll see some of those great crosses that he swings in. Beckham-esque, I would sort of only slightly tongue-in-cheek call them. Arriola, I'll be looking for the thing that we really enjoyed when we've seen him play, which is his one touch, like the way he takes the ball and moves at the same time.
I call it scrappy skill, because it's like you think of him as like he hustles, he works hard, he fights for the ball, but then he has those moments of like, oh yeah, he brought down that ball at full speed and while running the wrong way, and then also continued at full speed.
He has those moments that are just kind of like...
That's not an exaggeration. What I just described is what he actually did in the game.
Several times, right?
Yeah.
Okay, over on the left, I've gone Jordan Morris.
Really?
Because... This is really why I've done it, is because he was featured by US Soccer and Giassi Zardes wasn't.
You've stolen my approach.
Which suggests to me, I mean, I've learned from it because you tended to be right when you did this, suggests that he's just higher in the pecking order and Giassi Zardes isn't.
Well, there's a name that you haven't mentioned there. I agree with you. I agree with you on that one.
It's Kellen Rowe?
Juan Agudelo, who started there against Portugal.
Yes,
started on the left, and that's where I'm thinking we may see him again. Because again, it's Dave Sarachan still in charge. Maybe he doesn't want to change up too much. Maybe he wants a little bit of familiarity there. Juan Agudelo was there against Portugal, so maybe we see him there against Bosnia and Herzegovina.
I completely forgot that. That's interesting. Or could we see Juan Agudelo at centre forward?
That's possible. We might also see. I mean, it's also a decent shout for Jordan Morris. He's played wide for Seattle at times, obviously. So it's a thing he could do, and we haven't seen a lot of him lately. So yeah, why not see him there either?
Are you picking Agudelo and I'm picking Morris? Is
Sure.
That what we're doing? Okay. Centre forward. There's a lot of options here. Even with Dom Dwyer dropping out.
I went head over heart.
Did you? Okay.
I'll say that right now.
Well,
wait, heart over head. I went heart over head.
Let me tease it a little bit, like Eric Wynalda's build-up to his presidential forum speech. Even with Dom Dwyer dropping out, you've got Juan Agudelo, possibly Jordan Morris, Christian Ramirez. People are very excited to see him. Rubio Rubin and CJ Sapong, who was excellent against Portugal in November. Does that count, or is that so far in the past that we don't know if that's going to be rewarded with another start?
I have to say it counts, since I just said it counts for Juan Agudelo. And that's where my head says it will be CJ Sapong again. My heart, though, wants it to be Christian Ramirez.
Just because we haven't seen him in a US jersey before and we want to see that happen.
Yeah.
I know Minnesota fans will agree.
Yes, but he's also another one who I think tends to get, or has been, overlooked in the past. He's been eligible, is an American player, but didn't get any looks, didn't get many call-ups, didn't get much attention, and so now suddenly finds himself in a position where he could start or at least play for the U.S. national team. I like that idea very much.
Okay. I'd be happy either way, I think, because Agudelo, Ramirez, or CJ Sapong, I'm kind of good with the lineup. And
what about if Dom Dwyer comes back on crutches?
I mean, he should not start on crutches. I mean, they're illegal objects on a field, for one thing.
Oh, that's a good point.
Yeah.
I hadn't thought about that. You and your rules.
Me and my rules. Are we being disrespectful to Giassi Zardes here? So he's listed as a midfielder, which is why I don't think he'll start up front. But just because US Soccer didn't feature him, isn't there a chance that 37 caps, he's local to Los Angeles, which is where this game is going to, Carson, where the game's going to be, he has to feature at some point, right?
I feel like you're doing this on purpose. I feel like you want me to get annoyed. That's what I feel like you're trying to do here. Maybe we're being disrespectful to Giassi Zardes. I wouldn't phrase it that way. I would phrase it as, we have gone for players we would like to see and things we would like to see in this game.
Because we're looking to the future.
Giassi Zardes is not a player that I would like to see start right now. Maybe that'll change. Maybe he'll light up the league and he'll develop even more as a player. But I think if you look at what happened with him last season, how he was moved around, how he was injured, it doesn't seem like a player that I'm then excited to see, like, oh yeah, let's get him in there and see what he's capable of.
Because I guess what we're really looking for from this game is just, for me, I'm just looking for some twinkle of light in the sky.
Yeah.
That it just means that the future, there is some hope. And that's a great Tyler Adams performance, or a great performance from a defender who hasn't played before, maybe Ike Opara. You know what I mean? I'm just looking for some hope.
I am not excited to watch this game with you at all.
Is that right?
Because it's going to be
Am I going to be annoying? I'm going to be too optimistic.
It's going to be the type of game when you're like, did you see the way Tyler Adams looked behind him 45 minutes before the goal happened? I think he was that was like a chaos effect where like the butterfly flapped its wings, Tyler Adams turned, suddenly the U.S. scored.
I promise I won't be all about Tyler Adams. There'll be plenty of other players to be impressed by.
Sure.
Yeah.
Sure. That game again, Sunday,
Sunday
6:30
night.
Pacific.
Pacifico time.
Specific Pacific time.
Specific Pacific time is 6. Well, actually, US Soccer says 6:30.
Oh, God.
So actual kickoff time?
10:45.
10:45. Let's say 6:30.
Sure.
Let's say 6:30. 9:30 Eastern. I think we'll probably do the review Monday morning,
I think so too.
right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Hopefully, there'll be lots of positive things to talk about.
Hopefully. Speaking of positive things to talk about.
Yes. Today's show is also sponsored by AwayDaysFootball.com, one of our most popular sponsors ever, if you read our Twitter feed.
You are not wrong.
So Away Days Football, it's a small and independent soccer clothing brand based out of Boston. The guy, Martin, it's okay to say his name, right? Mm-hmm. Martin, who runs this, really does run this independently. He is a New England Revolution season ticket holder, so you know he's a proper soccer fan.
Yeah, I mean, there's no glory hunting there.
I guess he'll be watching the game as well. Maybe see if Agudelo gets some goals, see if Kellen Rowe gets in the game. We didn't really mention him as a starter. So Martin, of course, and Away Days Football, of course, are famous for the mystery kits. That's what really got everybody's attention last time we did these ad reads. So those mystery kits are, basically you buy a mystery kit, and what do you get, Taylor?
You get a random mystery kit.
You certainly do. You do not know what it's going to be. It could be sort of an old Sheffield United kit. It could be something from South America, from Japan. You absolutely do not know. People got very excited about it. Everyone seemed
Northern
really
Europe
happy.
in there. You got some Scandinavia running around.
Yeah.
Get some Eastern Europe running around. It's all very exciting. Yeah.
And I mean, anywhere in the world you can name, you could be getting a kit from there. Martin has asked us to highlight, though, he doesn't only do the mystery kits, people.
He does not.
He's also got that beautiful Away Days Football logo, which you correctly pointed out is
a ball and a globe.
Not two balls. It really, I see it now. I really like it. Soccer ball and a globe, sort of slightly overlapping Venn diagram-ish. Really nice logo. So Martin has put, for the next 48 hours only, he has put a T-shirt and a hoodie on sale on the AwayDaysFootball.com website. I think a beanie as well. They're all on sale.
One of the beanies is already sold out. He says, looking at the screen in front of him.
Okay, I think the midnight blue beanie is available. Am I correct? Yeah. Mm-hmm. These things are priced lower than anything else on the site, and you can still use the TSS discount code to get even more of a discount.
I'm down for that.
TSS discount code is TSS for 15% off. That's TSS for 15% off at AwayDaysFootball.com. Works on mystery kits, works on anything, also works on the sale items.
On the entire site.
Yep.
There we go. So thank you to Away Days for sponsoring this show as well. We move on to our final segment of the day. Daryl Grove, Scouting Network.
Yeah, all right. We got some young Americans to kick things off.
Chris Fujimoto, scouting Jonathan Amon, the 18-year-old American winger for FC Nordsjælland. Jonathan Amon started and played 22 minutes for Nordsjælland in a training match against Lyngby. Don't worry, Daryl. FCN started new 11s in each half, so Amon's low minute count isn't anything to be concerned about. That said, Amon did make his minutes count as he scored a goal and drew a penalty before being subbed off. The club's website described him as an everlasting source of turmoil, which is outstanding.
Lyrical.
In addition, he was
Dylan
selected.
Thomas right for the club's website?
I think so. I think that's where he went. In addition, Amon was selected for the U.S. Youth Summit over the holiday period. He then returned to Nordsjælland where he started, so it's good to see him still in consideration.
All right, Jonathan Amon on the up and up. Cody Levine is scouting Kyle Scott, the 20-year-old American central midfielder for Chelsea. Cody says Scott was a commanding presence in the Chelsea U21s midfield as they defeated Oxford United 3-0 in the Checkatrade Trophy, a.k.a. the EFL Trophy. Chelsea's U21s are the first developmental squad to reach the semis of this competition, but Cody is still hoping Kyle gets a loan move sometime this window. Tick-tock, tick-tock.
Indeed. Mark Bujarski scouting Cody Sundqvist, the 18-year-old American forward. Sundqvist is back stateside. He announced on Twitter that he has accepted a scholarship to play at UCLA, following in the illustrious footsteps of Carlos Bocanegra, Jimmy Conrad, and Benny Feilhaber. We saw Carlos Bocanegra at the MLS draft.
Oh, yeah, we did.
Dude's got posture.
He does.
Dude's got a nice suit.
He has fine posture.
He sure does.
And that's how you win so many headers.
I think so.
Also, happy birthday last week to Mark Bajowski. Sam Nelson is scouting Ulysses Lanes, the 16-year-old forward for the LA Galaxy. Yanez joined the LA Galaxy.
I was going to try to correct you to make it even worse. Like it's lanes. It's lanes.
You should always give me like 3 or 4 seconds to figure it out. Yanez joined the LA Galaxy first team for the start of preseason training camp. Although it is very unlikely he will stay with the senior team, it's good to see him and 4 other academy products, get some first team looks. I've always thought the LA Galaxy should have leaned harder on their young players instead of keep signing old Europeans.
That seems to be what they're doing now. I think all of their acquisitions this offseason have been under 30, except I can't believe that applies to Chris Pontius. So he might have broken that trend. James Jones scouting Andrew Carlton, 17-year-old American midfielder for Atlanta United. Of course, I get saddled with whatever name this is. Tata Martino specifically addressed where he thought Atlanta United's homegrown players will be for the coming season and mentioned Carlton as a player that could see time with both the first team and the inventively named ATL UTD2 in Gwinnett.
Okay, let's address this then.
Let's do this.
So you spelled it out. That is the official name is capital letters ATL UTD2.
Yes.
I'm thinking they want us to say ATL United 2.
Okay.
Which is still a mouthful.
It is.
Yeah.
But also
ATL2?
But see, and I know that there are listeners out there who are like, it's Atlanta United 2. You know it. Why are you guys making it harder? But no, if you look at all of their branding, it is ATL UTD 2. It is not Atlanta United 2, also known as ATL UTD 2.
I think I would have called them Gwinnett.
Yeah.
Because it's in a different city.
I stand by Gwinnett City, man. It's both a city and a county. That's what James told us.
It sounds a bit like a David Bowie song.
Gwinnett City?
Yeah.
But it's also, I like to play on the Atlanta United, so Gwinnett City.
I see.
Yeah.
Because everything revolves around United City.
Correct.
Yeah. Maybe could some Atlanta fans, and we're not kidding ourselves that there are any specifically ATL UTD2 fans who don't support Atlanta United, could Atlanta fans let us know what is either the club's preferred pronunciation, more importantly, what is your preferred pronunciation of this Gwinnett team?
If we do the commentary when ATL UTD2 comes to town, I look forward to, I'm not going to name the club, but last season there was one that gave us very specific instructions on what they wanted to be called and how to refer to them. Within the first minute, intentionally misreferred to them.
Intentionally?
Not really. I think I'll probably say that now, but in the time it was just like, I know that wasn't right, but whatever, I'm good on it.
But it felt normal to say it the way that you said it,
yes,
I imagine.
It did.
All right, we're going to have to stop talking in code.
All right. While first team minutes would be great for Carlton, the most important thing is that Carlton gets consistent professional minutes. So, says James, the most prudent approach might be to let him play with ATL UTD2 in the early season, then recall him during fixture congestion and US Open Cup time.
Okay, so the thing we imagine for Carlton is what's going to happen, right? A lot of Gwinnett minutes, but also that's what they should be called, Gwinnett minutes.
There you go.
And then some
That's such a good one.
Some first team minutes with the Atlanta team.
That's really good, Daryl.
Andrew Baird is scouting Josh Perez. Oh, this is not such good news, right? Josh Perez, the 20-year-old American winger on loan at Livorno from Fiorentina. Andrew says Perez and his Livorno teammates return to action Monday afternoon, squaring off against 13th place Lucchese in their first match back from the winter break. For Perez, the story was more or less the same as it's been all season. He came on as a second-half sub, entering the game in the 81st minute with the score tied 1-1. Livorno remained top of the table, 10 points clear through 21 matches. I remember, was it from this scouting report or elsewhere that his place in the team is essentially taken by a 37-year-old?
Yes, it was that, and then they've also brought in another player in the window who they were looking at in the summer. No one is entirely certain if that means Josh Perez gets even fewer minutes. We shall see.
Okay.
Also, playing against an Italian team called Lucchese, slightly intimidating. Michael Bite scouting Tierna Davidson, 19-year-old American center back for Stanford.
I'm pretty sure it's Michael Bate because he tweeted us today saying, I sent this scouting report just a little too late to get on the US Women's National Team review show. His Twitter name is Michael B and the number 8.
Oh, there we go. Bate. It is. Tierna Davidson picked up her first cap against Denmark and the US national team's win, joining Mallory Pugh and Lindsay Horan as only the third teenager to debut for the US since 2013. Decent company there. After the game, she flew to Trinidad and Tobago. Travis and I talked about this on today's Top Drawer Soccer Show, where she joined the U20s in their quest for a 5th consecutive CONCACAF championship.
All right, go U20s.
Playing Haiti on that team, on the U20 squad, is Derek Etienne Jr.'s sister.
Really?
It's a family connection.
How about that? All right. Rebecca Sitter is scouting Jalen Howell, the 18-year-old American midfielder for the Real Colorado Academy. Howell's strong CONCACAF tournament, Rebecca says, continued as she scored an 89th-minute match winner in the US Women's 2-1 win over Jamaica. Then she was a physical presence in midfield as the US won their group, taking out Mexico 2-1. Howell and the US team take on Haiti on Friday, so that's tomorrow. A win would guarantee a berth at the U20 Women's World Cup.
Elijah Bates scouting Zach Steffen, the aforementioned 22-year-old American goalkeeper for Columbus. Steffen is in contention to start Sunday against Bosnia, but seems to be the fan favorite to eventually earn that spot.
Yep, same here. Beth Jolly and Alex Barone are scouting Kylian Mbappe, the 19-year-old French forward for PSG.
Lots of info here. Very good.
Beth and Alex say PSG's 2-1 loss at Lyon on Sunday was especially painful for Kylian. He suffered a gash on the back of his head when going up for a header, and he was later stretchered off the pitch following a violent collision with Lyon goalkeeper Anthony Lopez. PSG have confirmed that Kylian did not suffer serious injury, but will be held out of the next two matches to make sure he is fit for the first leg of PSG's Champions League clash with Real Madrid. In financial fair play news, reports indicate that UEFA investigators are satisfied with the way PSG negotiated Kylian's loan deal with Monaco and Neymar's release from Barcelona. Kylian Mbappe's on loan?
Yeah, I think, isn't it like a loan through this season? Then it's like a mandatory buy at the end.
I've forgotten that.
Yeah.
Okay.
But here's the big however.
Okay. However.
Yeah.
PSG still have financial fair play concerns. They must make up a deficit of around 75 million euros and also still need to convince UEFA of the validity of their accounts, specifically sponsorship deals. I see. That means the rich owner has bought some very expensive sponsorship.
Yes. The Rich Ownership Tires is the name of their official tire company.
So this is like if I won the lottery and I was like, oh, Taylor, I'm going to sponsor next episode of the Total Soccer Show. This episode's brought to you by Daryl and I'm going to pay you $1 billion.
Yes, I like that analogy. I also like the idea of like UEFA kicking down the door and being like, that's not okay. American podcast.
Because $1 billion to sponsor this show would be like twice what it should cost.
I mean, yeah, there you go. Alex Bruce scouting Davy Selke, 22-year-old German striker for Hertha Berlin. Selke scored Hertha's lone goal seconds into the second half in their 1-1 draw with Dortmund. His goal was cancelled out by Shinji Kagawa, a header from him from a cross from Jadon Sancho.
Assist!
Daryl's favorite. That is in the report. That goal was Selke's 9th in all competitions this season.
All right. Connor Davis is scouting Connor Ronan, the 19-year-old Irish midfielder on loan at Portsmouth from Wolves. Connor says Ronan was man of the match in his Pompey debut, which was a 1-1 draw with Scunthorpe. Connor thinks that Connor could become an important squad player for Pompey and could even get more looks for Ireland since they didn't qualify for the World Cup. Yeah, get good, Connor Ronan, and then come and play for Wolves.
There we go. Mark Jones scouting Ryan Brewster, 17-year-old English striker for Liverpool.
Hero of the U17 World Cup.
It's been a difficult few months for Ryan. In December, he was racially abused during a UEFA Youth League game by Spartak Moscow youth team captain Leonid Mironov, who has since been charged by UEFA. More recently, I didn't throw allegedly in there. Once you're charged, I'm good to say you did it. More recently, on January 12th, Brewster suffered a serious ankle injury during a U23 match against Manchester City. Reports say it's a high ankle injury with ligament damage, and there's no timetable for his return.
John Roda is scouting Jacob Brun Larsen, the 19-year-old Danish winger on loan at Stuttgart from Dortmund. John says, after joining the Dortmund senior team for their trip to Marbella during the winter pause, Brun Larsen will now go on loan for 6 months to Stuttgart. He joins both former Dortmund youth coach Hans Wolf, Stuttgart's manager, and fellow Dortmund loanee Dennis Burnich. Best news is that there are no options to extend the loan or buy him, so it appears Jakob is still in the plans for BVB. He just needs more first-team playing time. I may have mispronounced Borussia Dortmund there.
Yeah, it's all good. Justin Hansen scouting Frank Kessié, the 21-year-old Ivorian midfielder for AC Milan. Frank the Take has scored. Kessié scored a brace in Milan's 2-1 comeback win over Cagliari this past Sunday after going 1-0 behind early. Kessié put the team on his back, converting a penalty in the 36th minute and adding a second just 6 minutes later.
I did hear that Rino Gattuso said that Frank Kessié is a better player than I ever was.
Oh.
Which is quite a compliment from his coach.
That is.
Yeah.
I'm surprised you would say that.
He may just be building confidence in the young man.
Nah, I think that's kind of his style, is to be very, very humble.
Jeff Markman is scouting Jeff Rene Adelaide and Reece Nelson, the 20 and 18-year-old midfielders, respectively, for Arsenal. Jeff says that Reece Nelson made his Premier League debut for Arsenal in the 4-1 victory over Crystal Palace, coming on for Mesut Ozil in the 72nd minute, with the game long since decided by an early barrage of goals. Meanwhile, Rene Adelaide scored a brace in a 5-2 Gunners win over Bayern Munich in the Premier League International Cup. What is this? The victory secured advancement for the young Arsenal squad in a competition that Jeff is assured assured actually exists?
Yeah, I have no idea. But
Premier League International Cup. So I'm guessing it's like U23s or something like that?
sure.
Yeah, sure.
Why not?
We should research this. I've got
Jeff says it exists. That's good enough for me.
we trust Jeff Martman, right? We've known him a while. I've got some other like little updates. Players in the network that we haven't received reports on. Weston McKennie suffered a knee injury. I actually saw the tackle. It was not good. He's going to be out for 6 weeks. If you think about it, that means he could be at risk of not playing for the US in the March friendlies, right? I think
there's a decent chance he doesn't.
So we have to call it on Weston McKennie for a little bit, just wish him a speedy recovery. Chris Durkin, local, almost Richmond player, I read a quote from Ben Olsen that he's going to include him in the DC United first team squad, and he'll have a chance to earn minutes in pre-season. So there's a chance that we see Chris Durkin playing for DC United this season.
That will work.
Yeah.
I'll take that.
Thank you for the scouting reports. Thank you to Chris, Cody, Mark, Sam, James, Andrew, Michael, Rebecca, Elijah, Beth, Alex, Alec, Connor, Mark, John, Justin, and Jeff.
Agreed.
Thanks, Taylor.
No problem.
Thank you to everyone who sent scouting reports. If you'd like to join the network, it's totalsoccershow.com/join. If you have joined and I haven't assigned you a player and you're thinking, I'm waiting on this, where is this? Email me, tell me, I'll get it to you as soon as possible.
As many curse words as you can put in there, that really gets Daryl's attention.
Email Daryl at totalsoccershow.com, DARYL at totalsoccershow.com. Let me know you're waiting for a player. I will get it to you, I promise.
And don't curse at him. He's a gentleman.
I can edit it out of my mind.
All right.
I'll just say redacted as I read it. Taylor Rockwell, thank you for taking the time to talk to me today.
Right back at you, buddy.
Listeners, if you want even more podcasts, Taylor did another show today.
He
did. Top Draw Soccer Show with Taylor and Travis Clark, where they go deep on, as I understand it, development academies and other youth clubs in US soccer and all the relations therein.
That is accurate.
That sound about right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so go find Top Draw Soccer Show, all one word, Top Draw Soccer. Find it on iTunes or wherever you get your podcasts. It's a great show. Thank you for listening. We'll talk to you again tomorrow. You gotta slice it.